The day of judgment awaits Iran, and it will change everything we know. When the US will strike Iran, it will be the biggest military operation of the century. This is something we have not seen and will probably not see again in our lifetime. The world is at the tipping point, and we are about to see the dawn of a new world without Iranian terrorism. The end of the great evil of the Ayatollahs is coming, and their darkness will be confronted by a force they cannot resist. So let's look at what is coming. Right now, Iran is being surrounded by an unprecedented military buildup. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is already in the Arabian Sea. This by itself is already a force that can cause serious damage and cannot be reproduced by any other nation. The carrier is accompanied by at least 3 Arie Berg-class destroyers. Additionally, who knows how many Virginia-class nuclear submarines are underwater, and we can't forget about the guided missile cruisers. The list is completed by some logistics ships for maintenance. On the 20th of January 2026, another destroyer, USS Roosevelt, was seen in the Mediterranean Sea, closing up on the waters of Israel. And on January 30th, 2026, another destroyer, this time Delbert D. Black, arrived at the port in Eilat of Israel. So just the carrier strike group and the 2 destroyers could launch hundreds of Tomahawk missiles that would be deadly for the regime. A Tomahawk doesn't just fly in a straight line like a dumb rocket. It flies hundreds to thousands of kilometers, hugs the terrain, valleys, coastlines, hills to stay hidden. It navigates without GPS alone and can be retasked in flight to hit a different target or aboard. That is an amazing rocket. But that's not all, friends. It is, after all, called an aircraft carrier. An aircraft carrier is a fully mobile air base that brings an entire air force anywhere on Earth. This is insane. So let's just look at what the Abraham Lincoln Strike Group has at its disposal. It can carry 10 F-35s, the most advanced planes in the world. The bulk of the power, however, are the F-18's Super Hornets. A typical aircraft carrier has about 44 planes of this kind. Then there are about 5 EA-18 Growlers. Those are used for electronic warfare. For early warnings and battle management, there are about 4 Hawkeyes. This is basically a flying radar on a plane. And of course, there are also the helicopters, the Seahawk and the Osprey. Every carrier strike group has about 10 Seahawks and about 2 Ospreys. We saw what helicopters can do in the battle over Venezuela. When combined with electronic warfare, those helicopters become a very effective weapon. But guys, this is just the beginning of what the US has at its disposal. The US military operates at least 18 military sites in the Middle East. But we'll just focus on the ones that will be probably used in a military strike on Iran. So first we have Qatar, where the US has its biggest military base in the region. So let's have a look at it. And you can already see long runways for the planes and of course the planes. More of them are hiding in the hangars. The bases are not only a spear for the United States to attack, but also a shield for the protection of the assets in the region. The 2 defensive systems that the United States uses are the Patriots and the Tahad batteries. The Patriots are the low altitude end game defense. and the Tahad are high altitude, early interception. They don't replace each other, they work together. It's a deadly combination. It's a combination that can stop almost any rocket. On January 30th, 20 American transport planes C-17 Globemaster landed in bases of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait. This is a process of expanding air defense and a preparation of supplies, spare parts that will be needed when the attack on Iran will happen. So now let's look at the other military bases of the United States, and we'll look at them quickly so that you have an idea where they are located. And then we'll talk more about what is happening. So, as we can see, there are a lot of those bases around Iran. Before I continue, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit that like button and the bell button for notifications. Of course, if you like this kind of content. Also, you can check out my other social media channels, and please check out my Patreon and PayPal. This is the best way you can support the channel. I will leave links in the description. Thank you. Additionally, we must also understand that the United States are fully capable of attacking Iran from a really long distance. We could see an example of that with the Midnight Hammer operation. This is when, on June 22, 2025, the B-2 stealth bombers departed from the Whiteman Air Base in Missouri. The planes flew continuously for around 18 hours with mid-air refueling before reaching Iranian airspace. Once there, the B-2 dropped the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator bunker-busting bombs. The bombs were dropped from a very high altitude. And once in air, the GPS and the ENS guidance keeps the bomb headed toward those precise coordinates until the bombs reach the target. The most spectacular hit was the Fordo uranium enrichment plant, because it was in the middle of the mountain, that massive bunker. And the effectiveness of this missile was the fact that it didn't explode once it reached the surface. It exploded when it penetrated the deep mountain. This is when the explosion happened, causing huge destruction. So that was one example, but there are other places from where the United States can target Iran. For example, a giant ultra-secure aircraft carrier that doesn't move, the Diego Garcia base. And because it's so isolated in the middle of the ocean, it's a hard target to hit. But there is a problem. The territory is administered as a British Indian Ocean Territory, UK territory. It is leased and operated by the United States, but recently there has been some dispute over this island. You might heard about it in the news. So basically the UK wants to give this and the other Chagos Islands to the China-friendly country of Mauritius. Now, under this deal, the United States would still keep the lease to govern this base. But the problem is that if the owner of the island is a China-friendly country of Mauritius, there is no guarantee that they will prolong this lease, and one day China can convince this small nation that the control over this island should be given to China. Anyway, this is still a conversation for the future, but right now the United States is capable of using this base to attack Iran. What matters is that the United States have a lot of options to attack Iran. And the B-2 stealth bombers are an ace or a joker in a tile of cards, and nobody else have such good cards, using Trump's terminology. And finally, there is one more asset that the United States have in the region, and perhaps it's their greatest asset. That's Israel. Israel proved to be an effective weapon against Iran in the 12-day war in 2025. And despite being David against Goliath, their great intel and excellent execution caused huge damage to the regime, crippling its capabilities. Israel was even capable of attacking Iran in the heart of their empire. They struck many targets in Tehran. Remember this iconic moment? Yep, that was pure irony. This woman is like, yeah, Iran will destroy its enemies and everything, and then this happens. The main TV station, the main center for propaganda is just demolished by Israel in the center of Tehran. Another impressive target hit by Israel was the Qom ammunition bunker, hit again in the heart of Iran. During those 12 days, Israel hit many strategic targets in Iran, including nuclear and nuclear-related facilities, military compound, leadership and missile assets, and critical infrastructure. Here are some photos showing you the damage done by Israel. Israel was lethal in its attacks, with an unprecedented precision, hitting specific apartments where nuclear scientists and military personnel was residing. Of course, the main focus of Israel was crippling Iran's nuclear capabilities, the main threat of Israel's existence in the Middle East. This video shows you Israeli special agents inside Iran gathering necessary intel for those operations to be successful. I mean, they had people in Iran before the attacks. That's really, really amazing. And they knew exactly where they wanted to strike and what they wanted to strike. I'm sure right now Israeli special agents are also gathering necessary information before the second stage of the war with Iran. Israel needs the precise plans of the nuclear facilities to effectively destroy them. It is an immensely difficult task, but Israel is the only nation that can achieve such intel. And because Iran remains the greatest threat to Israel, we saw it in the 12 Days War, it is almost certain that Israel will join the war against Iran. It is in their national interest, in the safety of their country, that Iran is stopped. Now, what may shock you is that the Israelis do not wish the Iranian people to suffer. I would say much more, the Israeli people support the Iranian people. These are pictures from Israel showing you that the Israelis were and are supporting the Iranian people in fighting for their freedom. But that's not all, folks. When the Iranian diaspora gathers around the world to protest against the regime, you will see many Israeli flags on such protests. Even within Iran itself, some protesters were brave enough to have an Israeli flag. So what is about this friendship between Israel and Iran? Well, to comprehend this, we gotta understand that the friendship between the Iranians and the Israelis is ancient. After the Assyrian Empire came Babylon, which caused the destruction of Judea and the deportation of its people. For the Jewish people, this was a gigantic catastrophe. They had to leave their homeland and live in a foreign land they didn't know. But then came another empire called Persia, which restored the Jewish hopes of having a homeland again. It was under Cyrus, the Persian ruler, that the Jewish people were allowed to return and govern the province of Judea. Now, if we look at this map and see where the modern country of Iran is today, we will quickly observe that it is located in the heart of the Persian Empire. So, the Jewish people are very grateful to the descendants of the Persian people, the Iranian people, for allowing them to have their home back. But there is even more fascinating information. You see, in the Bible, we read that only a fraction of this giant Jewish population returned to Judea. But the majority of the Jewish community decided to stay and live in the Persian Empire. This tells you something, that the Jewish people felt good, secure, and welcomed in the Persian Empire. And that's why the majority of the Jewish people decided to stay and not return to Judea. And there is, of course, more information that confirms this. For example, the Talmud, the most important Jewish commentary on the Torah, was developed on the territory of Persia. And yes, you could say there are two Talmuds. One is Mishnah, developed in the land of Israel, and the other one is Gemara, which is a much more extensive study, and that was developed on the lands that the Jewish people lived for centuries, former Persia. Another example that confirms this, that the Jewish people lived for centuries on the territory that was Persia, is actually from the New Testament. In the book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 9, we read that the Jewish people came from Parthia, Medes, and Elam. So it tells us that even in the times of the New Testament, there still was a prominent Jewish community on those ancient lands. You could even say that this community lasted till the 20th century. There are even estimates that say that about 100,000 Jewish people lived in Iran before 1979. Then, of course, the Islamic Revolution happened and the Jewish people were expelled from Iran. Imagine this, 100,000 people were expelled. Today, less than 8,000 Jewish people still live in Iran, and it's not a very easy life. A lot of them are forced to convert to Islam. The Jewish people were not the only ones that suffered the Islamic Revolution. Here you can see pictures from Iran before the revolution. In the Middle East, Iran was a very progressive country with a lot of rights for women, where they could only dream of such freedoms in other countries in the region. Of course, everything ended after the Islamic Revolution of 1979. The whole country became Muslim. Even the flag that the regime uses today has been changed. This is the flag that functioned before the revolution, with a lion in the center holding a sword and a sun behind it. This is also the flag that you will see on the protests against the revolution. The regime claims that 99% of the country is Muslim. But independent studies have shown that the figure is much lower, perhaps 50% or even lower. And in fact, every year the amount of Muslims decreases in Iran. We even saw the destruction of mosques in the recent protest, and that was something we would not see just a few years earlier. If we analyze history, we will see that Iran in its roots was not Muslim. Before the creation of the country of Iran, the lands that Iran holds today were known as a Sassanid Empire. And the dominant and state-supported religion of the Sasanian Empire was Zoroastrianism. They were a major player in the region, threatening the Eastern Roman Empire. There were several big battles between the Sassanid Empire and the Byzantine Empire. At some point, the Sassanid Empire even started dominating the Byzantine Empire, but then another force appeared in the region. And that, of course, is the spread of Islam, which did not spread peacefully, but it spread by conquest. By the end of the 7th century, the Sassanid Empire, the former Persian Empire, was conquered by Arabs. And those were Arabs that enforced their religion on the people of today's Iran. So, in the past, we had a similar situation. But we must remember that Iran, in its core, in its genesis, was not Muslim. Here you can see a map showing you where Israel is located, and the green color shows you countries that surround Israel. And not only they surround Israel, but they also share common religion, Islam. Yes, of course, Iran is mostly Shia, but still, it's from the same prophet, right? Muhammad. Now imagine if the people of Iran would rebel against this foreign religion that was imposed on them. That would totally change the dynamic of the region. You would have a country of about 90 million people that would not be Muslim in the heart of the land that Muslims claimed for centuries, that Muslims conquered, and for them it would be unthinkable to lose this land. And if we would look at even a further perspective, we would see another country that is not Muslim, which is India. And India has very good relationships with Israel. India is also fighting the invasion of Muslim religion. So now you can understand why the Arab countries, despite being an enemy of the Shia regime, do not want its fall, because that would ultimately mean that a country would change from being Muslim to perhaps a secular country. And the Arab countries went so far to say that they would not allow the US to use their airspace. Can you imagine this? The United States pay a lot of money to keep those bases there, and now basically the Arab countries are saying, no, you cannot use them. I mean, what kind of allies are they then? Well, the truth is that you're not a true ally if you're not Muslim. And America so far is not Muslim. It's a foreign threat. Deeply inside, if not for the money of America, those nations would never side with America. So that's one kind of opposition that stands against the United States and America and do not want them to attack Iran. But there are even bigger players you can see now on the map. In recent days, we saw a lot of cargo planes sent from China and Russia. Of course, the contents of those deliveries was not revealed, but the intelligence is quite sure that defensive missile systems were sent to Iran just before the planned US attack. So this is of course a very broad topic and it requires a separate video. But for now, thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you would like to support me as a creator, the best way is Patreon and PayPal. Those are really the only reliable ways that can support me as a creator. Thank you everybody who's already supporting me. You guys are the best. Have a good day. Shalom.